Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another news roundup video, and over the past couple of days, we've got quite a bit of news to talk about. Today is going to be a jam-packed one from Joker 2, world premiere at Venice Film Festival. I want to go over that. We've got extra details about the Batman 2 that I didn't cover in yesterday's video, which you should definitely check out because I cover in depth about what villain we could be getting in the second movie. The DCU news as well, we have some really interesting other choices for Howard Jordan, among other things. So we're just going to dive right into this. Leave a like on this video if you do go on to enjoy it. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. I do want to remind people that you may think you're subscribed, but you might not be. Every time I do this, I do get a little influx of subscribers, and around like 46% of you who come back to watch the channel each and every day aren't actually subscribed. So maybe you'll click the red button today. Why not? Hopefully this video makes you want to do that, and possible future content on the channel. But let's get into Joker 2. So this is interesting because, I mean, I know there's plenty of people watching right now. Some of you may really not be looking forward to this movie. Some of you may not have liked the first movie. Some of you may have really liked the first movie and still may not be looking forward to the second movie, but some of you may be looking forward to the second movie, and that is where I fall into. But just like the first Joker movie, it seems that it's a bit divisive in terms of perspectives and critical opinions. Now, after a bunch of people got to see it for the first time at Venice Film Festival, a bunch of critics there is sitting at a 61% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I know not everybody takes Rotten Tomatoes as the gospel truth for what a film should be or how enjoyable it is, and I don't recommend doing so. And, you know, funnily enough, Joker, the first movie, even though it made over $1 billion, Joaquin Phoenix got an Oscar, it's sitting at 69%. And I do want to remind everyone, this score could improve, or it could go down even more once more and more critics see it when it actually releases on October 4th. But I just wanted to put that out there because, you know, obviously a lot of people love the first Joker movie, and it's set at 69%, which is fresh from Rotten Tomatoes, and so is 61%. But obviously, we're just gonna have to wait to see how the movie is for ourselves when it releases. But having said that, I do want to read out a few reviews, the initial reviews that is, courtesy of DC Film News here for compiling them. So we have The Hollywood Reporter saying, Joker Folie à Deux review, frustrating supervillain sequel is most electric when Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga sing. Deadlines say Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga in Todd Phillips' brilliant musical return to a world of something. Variety say it's an audacious concept, it's one that demands an audacious execution, and for the most part, that doesn't happen in the film. But The Independent say that it's just as bleak and daring as the original. Empire magazine say as sweet and beguiling as a musical romance as it's possible to have between two murderous psychopaths. Joseph Deckelmeiser says, after watching Joker Folie à Deux, I needed some time to process. It wasn't what I expected, but in the best way possible. Todd Phillips and Scott Silver took a bold creative leap. The film feels like an indie/art house film in a lot of ways. Scott Menzel says it's a bold and daring and mesmerizing masterpiece. Joaquin Phoenix continues to amaze as Arthur Fleck, while Lady Gaga delivers the best performance of her career thus far as Harley Quinn. And, you know, a lot of the reviews are similar. I would say most are pretty damn positive, but then you have others which are like, it's a bold musical, but is it, If you remember the reviews for Joker, it's kind of similar. So my expectations going into the sequel movie are set accordingly. And I think, not if you don't have the right expectations, that doesn't mean you don't enjoy it. But I think I know what this movie is going to be with regards to the musical numbers and how that's incorporated, not exactly like that of a typical musical to, the extravagance of In the Heights. But I think that I'm still going to enjoy it just based off of knowing what it is, having enjoyed the first movie and wanting to see where things go in the second movie, even with the new kind of creative twist in mind of it including musical numbers that adheres to the shared madness of Joker and Harley Quinn. But I would love to know what you guys think of these initial reviews that are coming out. We also got a little teaser, little promo for Joker 2 that I want to play here. We do get a little glimpse at Harvey Dent in it as well, who is trying to take down Arthur for the crimes in Joker Part 1. So let's leave it off there.
You got a big day today. You better put on a happy face.
Arthur Fleck is a monster who knew exactly what he was doing. His depraved acts of violence led to riots by his followers, and they are still willing to commit acts of violence in his name.
Look around. Look at all these people. Who do you think they see?
You can do anything you want. You're Joker.
Rated R.
Next up, we need to now delve into the realms of the DCU, because we've got all new information on Creature Commandos thanks to Entertainment Weekly. But what I really like this article for is that they speak to James Gunn, and he also kind of gives us little tidbits here and there and clues that get me excited about even other aspects of the DCU. So let's go through this and, provide a little bit of commentary. The thing I've always loved about DC Comics was that you had your mainstream comics that always ran, but they also had these tonally different comics like Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns and All-Star Superman, Gunn tells Entertainment Weekly. It was different from Marvel in that way. That's something I really want to retain within the studio, that every project is going to bring a different vision by the artists who are creating it. Now, this is something that has been said before by Gunn, and I've always liked that, because I've always said, yes, we need to see the proof in the pudding, but everything he's saying on paper shows that we're going to get a refreshing new cinematic universe. Each individual comic, as Gunn's explained it before, and as he even explains it here in DC, a Batman comic will feel different to a Superman comic. A Swamp Thing comic will feel different to a Superman comic, and so will Constantine to that of Green Arrow. And so each movie will uniquely and tonally be acutely in that vision as per what the creator or creative artist or whoever's directing and writing it wants it to be. All while they do share a connected cinematic universe, it will best serve the character and the film to make a Swamp Thing comic Swamp Thing and not share the exact same tone and themes and feeling and mood and just overall vibe as James Gunn's Superman. Now, as they get further and further into Creature Commandos here, Gunn says, "I'm used to dealing with oddballs and irregular types and weirdos. That's what Guardians is, and Creature Commandos is kind of like Guardians without the sentimentality. The Guardians are all really good characters at their heart, and that just isn't necessarily the case with the creatures." And we've also got all new looks of Creature Commandos here. One thing that people keep pointing out, and I wholeheartedly agree, is that Rick Flag Sr. really doesn't look like he has the same hair color in Creature Commandos as what he does in Superman. Like, here it is just pretty much outright gray, but if you've seen the set photos of Superman with Rick Flag Sr. standing alongside the Engineer and another mystery character, it's sure he's got a little bit of gray in it, but it's it's pretty damn different, so I don't get why there isn't that consistency there. And we know that Creature Commandos is set before Superman, so unless he dyes his hair, I don't know. But just wanted to chuck that in here. But Gunn continues to say that part of the fun for me was taking some of the basic of Mary Shelley's story and bringing them into this story about the spurned relationship between the bride and Frankenstein. Frankenstein is this incredibly well-spoken intellectual, but is still driven by his rage and his anger and his inability to really be a human being, and the inability for the one that he loves not loving him back. That's what drives him, and I can't wait to see that, and I can't wait to see David Harbour voicing Frankenstein here. The cast is just great. Now, as for G.I. Robot, what he says here kind of makes me pretty excited for, like, again, the larger world building and possible exposition we could get in Creature Commandos. So he says, "There's an innocence to G.I. Robot that I didn't quite see until Sean stepped into the booth and started creating this character. His choices for G.I. Robot give the character this sweet mechanic innocence. He's got this very sad history from World War II. The only time I think he felt at home was with the soldiers that he served with in DC's alternate history of World War II, where metahumans were involved." So I'm going to say it for the billionth time, but this is a DCU in where heroes have existed for a very long time. So what I love hearing about this is that we've got confirmations that heroes, metahumans, were around during World War II. It wasn't just GI robots serving alongside soldiers. So this could mean all kinds of metahumans were around back then, and even way before that. I mean, technically, we're going to get into the prequel of Paradise Lost, but one thing you guys know that I go on about quite a bit is possibly seeing a prequel, maybe 6 years from now, going back into the past of the DCU with the Justice Society of America. So the fact that he's saying in World War II, in the alternate history of of DC in the DCU. You had metahumans being involved alongside G.I. Robot, alongside just soldiers. So I wonder what that could mean for the future. I don't want to get my hopes up too high, but it would be pretty awesome if we got some little references here and there in the show, maybe even to the Justice Society, or just any metahumans that G.I. Robot encountered back in the World War II days of Gunn's DCU. And speaking of references, this is where Gunn says Superman is the true star of everything. It's a humongous epic. This is a way for people to just take a little nibble and see what it tastes like. There's a ton of fun references to other DC stuff, a bunch of hints for things that are coming, so I think it's just an extraordinarily fun way to start. So, references maybe pertaining to what I was saying on the previous answer that I read out, but also a hint of things that are coming. Interesting. I wonder what we could be getting there. Maybe references that lead into the Superman movie itself, or possibly beyond that. Now, we've also got a new poster for Creature Commandos here with DC officials saying the release date as well, saying on December 5th, everything will be declassified. And on this poster as well, you can see how we have a little look at Steve Agee's John Economos, who is also in Creature Commandos. You may recognize him from Peacemaker Season 1. He's going to reprise his role in Peacemaker Season 2, but also in Creature Commandos. But also, this makes me a bit anxious because guess what is happening the day after December 5th? That is my wedding. So, let's just hope that I can get my review up, because, oh man, I was saying to you guys before, knowing my luck, something like this would happen. At least it's not on my wedding day. And up next, we have some really cool details from the scooper Daniel RPK about Superman and lanterns. Now, don't worry, these aren't like spoilers, it's more just like what he's heard about things behind the scenes. Take it with a grain of salt, of course, but let's just entertain it anyway. And if any of this is true, it makes me very, very excited. So Daniel RPK says, I've also heard that the new Superman movie is fantastic and that they're going all out. It's a complete shift to hardcore sci-fi and fantasy, the exact opposite of Man of Steel. I don't know if I would haven't seen Superman. I've seen behind the set photos of the Fortress of Solitude, and I've mentioned that before, and how I can tell you from what I've seen, it does have sci-fi elements, such as, the Kryptonian console, the eyesore, which could just be in like one room of the fortress, I want to stress. Does have like a very Doctor Who TARDIS-y kind of sci-fi vibe to it, if that makes sense. But I don't know if it'd be like the exact opposite, but the way I would interpret this line from RPK and what he's heard is that obviously Gunn's DCU is just really not gonna like hide away from remotely anything. There's no setup to a larger sci-fi fantasy world. It is going straight, injecting comic book aspects and qualities into the veins of the DNA of this universe right from the get-go. He continues to say it's set in a world very different from ours and far removed from the DCEU. Heroes have been around for ages, and we'll see how it affects this world's history and has shaped the DCU, which I could take to mean how there has been a history in the ways I've explained, perhaps the JSA, the Golden Age of Heroes, but it's also shaped the world in present day to be a certain way with heroes, and how they could perhaps be a bit more regulated by the peoples of Earth. They may have felt like, oh, we don't need the Justice League of America. Let's rather have these regulated groups like Lord Tex, Hawk Girl, Mr. Terrific and whatnot, but Superman brings the old days back. That's the very rough running theory. RPK continues to say that the DC will feature various projects set across different timelines, not just present day. Hoping for my JSA prequel there, but we know this already with regards to, obviously, Paradise Lost. So more in line with the approach of Star Wars than Marvel. So continuing on here with lanterns, regarding Green Lantern/Lanterns, I've heard they're eyeing Josh Brolin because their vision for Hal Jordan is set to have him as an older, gruff, no-nonsense mentor to a younger and reckless Jon Stewart. And as we know, Brolin excels at playing the grumpy type. The series is set to start filming next year with a story that follows Hal and Jon as they investigate a twisted and bizarre murder mystery on Earth, uncovering a conspiracy that will impact the entire DC universe according to a production grid. That's something we already know. Gunn and Safran have emphasized how this is affecting their larger story, the main story in the DCU, and whatever this, murder in the American heartland is that Hal and Jon are investigating uncovers this, ancient, terrifying mystery. And I'm dying to know what that is. But as for Josh Brolin, I don't think what they've said there, absolutely means automatically we're going to get like a grumpy old man Hal Jordan. I think the way I interpret it is that he's just a very seasoned veteran, as per the official synopsis logline says, legend Lantern, who, you know, you just have that relationship between the older Lantern and a very, very brand new younger rookie, John Stewart. But I still expect, if Brolin is indeed cast and he accepts the offer, that there will be very much so Hal mannerisms there, but obviously being older, he's a bit of a seasoned, maybe more worn down, experienced Lantern. But again, I don't think that absolutely guarantees like a very, you know, sullen, firm, grumpy Hal Jordan. But you might get that at times. Maybe he could be a bit impatient here and there after having been doing the job as a Green Lantern for potentially a couple of decades or so. Now, as of when making this video, Josh Brolin hasn't been confirmed to have accepted the role. And another interesting thing to note is that it hasn't been confirmed or denied officially, which, as I always say, if Gunn doesn't address something as big as this, and the Josh Brolin thing was really, really big, it's the kind of thing he would shut down if there wasn't any truth to it. So the fact that he hasn't does kind of write on the wall for me that, yeah, maybe there is a bit of truth to this. And, you know, every now and again, you do get scoopers and outlets genuinely get like legitimate information like this. So I do believe the Josh Brolin thing is true, but now we're learning even more about other potential castings for Hal Jordan, just in case Josh Brolin declines the role. So DC Film News here report via the Insider, Jeff Snyder, saying, if Josh Brolin declines the role of Hal Jordan, Matthew McConaughey and Ewan McGregor are in consideration for Lanterns, which is super, super intriguing. But also, it's not just them. The same people who broke the news about how we could be getting Josh Brolin as Hal Jordan with the first offer, they're now saying that Chris Pine and Timothy Olyphant are also in the shortlist to play Hal Jordan. Reportedly, Pine, not Matthew McConaughey, will be offered the role next if Josh Brolin declines. So, we have Josh Brolin as the top person they want, but if he declines it, it would then be offered to Chris Pine, apparently next in the list, but then I guess it'll go down the list to maybe Matthew McConaughey, Ewan McGregor, and Timothy Olyphant as well. So what do I think of these potential castings? Man, this is a difficult one. I love Matthew McConaughey, and you guys know by now how much of a big fan I am of True Detective Season 1. I have to admit, it would be a bit weird having like a Rust Mark II. It's like Rust, from his character from True Detective Season 1, being in Green Lantern mode, given that this series is very heavily inspired by True Detective. So I'm not so sure about Matthew McConaughey. Up next, Ewan McGregor. I have to admit, at first, I saw a lot of people saying, oh, that would be amazing. I was a bit more hesitant about it, but the more it sat with me, the more I'd be like, okay, maybe he could be quite a good Hal Jordan. One thing to mention, by the way, is that all of these castings are in their 50s. So, like, they very deliberately want to cast somebody, because, you know, a lot of people were like screaming and kicking up a fuss about Josh Brolin's age. I understand where people are coming from, but it's very deliberately done. Each candidate here are in a similar age range. Mind you, Chris Pine is 44, but you get what I mean. But Ewan McGregor, I mean, the way I put it is that I wouldn't hate it. I don't think I would love it, but I think he would do a good job. He really, really would. Now, Chris Pine, it's another thing. It's another thing where it's like, I can't imagine him playing Hal Jordan. And the same thing with Timothy Olyphant here. I think he would do a really, really good job. But I don't know what it is, and I know this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but I'm still pretty game for Josh Brolin. I don't know if it has something to do with the fact that that was first reported and it kind of sat with me. I kind of understood the age thing. I still would have preferred somebody in their 40s. That was my expectation. Long story short, I always expected a Lantern, Hal Jordan, who's described as a legend Lantern to the Lantern cause in the DCU, and where we're hitting the ground running and where he's served for a long time already, to be in his 40s. So I understand they're going a little bit older, and I really do like, I feel like Josh Brolin has such gravitas that he would, in a Green Lantern suit, investigating a murder in the American heartland with a much younger rookie John Stewart, have so much screen presence and just so much. And I'm not saying, other popular actors like Ewan McGregor wouldn't and whatnot, but there's something about Josh Brolin's coarseness and just, I guess, have such a versatility in his acting that really feels like there would be this prestigious kind of take on Hal Jordan on this HBO original show where they're really swinging for the fences. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I get why, in my opinion, Josh Brolin is their top want and top pick for Hal Jordan. So if I was to rank it in my own personal list here, I would say that Josh Brolin would be the one I would want to accept the role. Up next, I guess I would say Ewan McGregor, and then I would say Timothy Olyphant, of whom I would say is almost matched with Ewan McGregor for me, but I would say he's rank 3. Rank 4 would be Chris Pine, and rank 5, I hate to say it, would be Matthew McConaughey. What would your ranking be? Let me know down in the comments below. I've seen already a lot of people say, I really hope Josh Brolin doesn't accept the role, so one of these other actors like Ewan McGregor could get it or whatever. Let me know if you've expressed anything like that. I would love to hear your thoughts. Up next, we have from Nexus Point News, another exclusive here, with how Luca Guadagnino is set to direct Sergeant Rock at DC Studios, with Justin Carisquez penning the script. Now, we've heard for a while that there would be a Sergeant Rock project in development, and Nexus Point News say this film is expected to be a period piece set during World War II. This does make sense because DC Film News, as per reporting here, says James Gunn confirms Easy Company will make an appearance in Creature Commandos. Members of the unit include Sergeant Rock, Little Sure Shot, seen here, and Jackie Johnson. So again, more exploration into the World War II period of the DCU, and again, I'm hoping for Justice Society, please. Sure, like, it's interesting exploring this stuff, but I want to see, okay, how do the heroes of World War II days contrast the heroes in the DCU, in where we pick up with Superman. But I am interested to see all kinds of other little projects that they've got going on like this. Now, I do have to admit, Luca Guadagnino, I haven't seen any of his work before. Maybe you guys could tell me a bit about him, how you feel about him potentially directing this project. And lastly, in this video, I want to go over some additional Batverse details. I say additional because, again, please check out yesterday's video for the main portion of stuff for part 2, the plot teaser and everything like that. But first, I'm going to start off with a couple of new trailers for the Penguin. One's more of a Penguin-oriented one, and then one's a Sophia one, and then we're going to dive into the details.
You know what I like most about you, Oz? You are who you are, and you couldn't change if you tried.
It's fine. I'm an acquired taste. Everything you heard about me is true. I hustle. Do what it takes.
Oh, you're so close now to having everything you ever wanted.
So much was taken from me. So I'm gonna take from them now. And together. Force everyone to their knees.
There's a storm coming. The start of a whole new empire. They're gonna tell stories about us. I'm gonna be the new kingpin of Gotham.
I wonder how you see me, Oz. If I am more than a thing to play with. The family thinks I'm broken. I'm not broken.
That's why we gotta take whatever we decide is ours.
I'm gonna force them to their knees. What do you say, Oz? You in?
Now, one detail that got a lot of people talking about it again, as if we didn't hear this 2 years ago, and as if I haven't been saying it for the past 2 years, but it's still like people just still refuse to believe it. And that has to do with, will the Batman get fantastical? Will it adapt a big blob monster Clayface rather than that of a more golden aged version, or, you know, extending this to someone like Poison Ivy? So they say in SFX magazine, continuing on the breakdown here, Reeves has established a gritty, realistic tone for Batman's adventures. So no chance of Robert Pattinson fighting one of the more fantastical foes like Gentleman Ghost. And Reeves says, you'll see Gentleman Ghost in Batman Caped Crusader from Bruce Timm, but you won't see him in this, laughs Reeves. What was important to me was to find a way to take these pop icons, these mythic characters that everybody knows, and translate it so that Gotham feels like a place in our world. We might push to the edge of fantastical, but we would never go into full fantastical. It's meant to feel quite grounded. It doesn't mean that you won't see characters that people love. That's exactly what we want to do. Gentleman Ghost is probably pushed a bit too far for us to be able to find a way to do, but there is a fun way to think about how we would take characters that might push over into a bit of the fantastical and find a way to make sense of that. So he's not shooting down, as I've gone over in my Rogues Gallery adaptation series, in how I do think Reeves could find a way to unwind Mr. Freeze and still do him, or unwind another more fantastical villain, but it won't be done in the pure outright fantastical sense as what you might see in the DCU Batman, right? And to those people being like, oh, do we really need to see another grounded Batman thing? We already had Nolan's kind of thing. I get what you're saying, but you have the DCU Batman for that. That is going full force, as I said, injecting the fantastical into the veins of the DCU's molecular structure. Don't worry about that. You're going to get all of that. I'm very confident about it. But Matt Reeves' vision, I think a lot of us love that here. And so continuing more along and down that line, I'm absolutely fine with. And if anything, I'm really excited to see, as per what Matt Reeves said, how we could take characters that might push over into a bit of the fantastical and find a way to make sense of that. That's really cool to me. How can they reinvent that in a more grounded, unwound, fantastical world? And I kind of ranted a little bit about how we've heard this before and how people are kicking up a fuss about it now, because we have heard of it before. And how Matt Reeves said over 2 years ago, in my view, I just feel drawn to finding the grounded version of everything. So to me, it would be a challenge in an interesting way to try and figure out how that could happen. Even the idea of something like Mr. Freeze. That's such a great story, right? I think there's actually a grounded version of that story, which could be really powerful and could be really great. So I love the fantastical side of Batman, but in this iteration, obviously, while being, to me, I think it is very comics faithful, but I don't think that this one is necessarily, it doesn't lean as hard into the fantastical, I guess. But I think, to me, what would be interesting would be to try and unwind the fantastical and see, well, how could that make sense here? And so that's kind of my view, how I see it. So not any brand new information to me, but I guess it is to a lot of other people still. This is why you're not going to get Pattinson's Batman in the DCU. Can we bury that now? Please. I am begging you, please. But in terms of talking about villains, he says, these movies are very much telling the story of Batman's emotional arc and the story in his point of view. Because they're mystery stories, we're learning about the other characters as they're involved in the detective story. So we're learning about them through him. A lot of times, and I completely agree with him here, what happens is you establish the Batman in the first movie, and then the next movie is the Riddler's movie or the Joker's movie, and the Rogues Gallery takes center stage. I wanted to find a way to keep Batman as the central arc of these movies. So he's not saying you won't get another poised up main Rogues Gallery villain for the second or third film like you had Riddler in the first movie, but it's still going to be mainly keeping Batman forefront and center, versus a good comparison would be The Dark Knight, in where, sure, it's a part of Nolan's trilogy, but Batman is more in the back seat compared to how Joker took over that story. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that Matt Reeves' point of view and way he wants to tackle his movies is that you are going to get other villains in it, but it's always going to be about a mystery unraveling, following Bruce's detective journey, and they're going to subsequently be a part of Batman's story. Now, I'm going to end this one here, but I will go over some of the other details, I think, of what Matt Reeves and Lauren LaFranc were talking about to SFX Magazine in a video I have coming out next week. Just to let you guys know, I'm on a bit of a mini vacation from Monday to Friday in Spain, and I have 2 pre-recorded videos going up, but one of them I've still got a little bit more to add in, such as some of these other details, and also some kind of discussion series questions that we're going to get into based off of yesterday's news on the Court of Owls. So I'm just going to really flesh out everything. So if you want one of your comments included, maybe leave one of them down below. But other than that, let me know your thoughts on everything we discussed in today's news roundup. If you guys made it to this point of the video, consider leaving a like, and obviously consider subscribing. Why not? As I said at the beginning, double check that red button. Maybe today is the day you will subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. But until next time, guys, I'm gonna love you and leave you. So once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.